diesel engine rumbled beneath me as I pulled into the Flying J truck stop just outside of Reno. My shift was supposed to start in 20 minutes, but I'd learned in my 3 years of long-haul driving to always show up early. Coffee, bathroom, pre-trip inspection, the holy trinity of not getting yourself killed on the road. I grabbed my thermos and headed inside. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, casting that sickly yellow glow that every truck stop in America seemed to share. A few other drivers sat scattered around the diner section, hunched over eggs and hash browns like they were the last meals they'd ever eat. Maybe for some of them they were. Marcus Webb. I turned to see a woman in her mid-50s standing near the coffee station. Gray hair pulled back in a tight bun, face weathered in that way that comes from too many years squinting at computer screens in poorly lit dispatch offices. She wore a company polo with the Zenith Logistics logo, a stylized Z, that always reminded me of a lightning bolt cutting through darkness. "That's me," I said, extending my hand. "You must be Sarah. We've talked on the phone a few times." She shook my hand with a grip that was firmer than expected. "Sarah Chin, Regional Dispatcher. Thanks for taking this route on short notice." "Well, the money's good." I poured myself coffee from the industrial pot. "Your message said triple rate for Nevada runs. That's hard to turn down. There's a reason for the premium." Sarah pulled a manila envelope from her bag. "Let's sit." We found a booth near the back, away from the other drivers. Sarah slid the envelope across the table to me. It was sealed with packing tape, my name written on the front in black marker. "What's this?" I asked. "Route documentation, delivery addresses, manifests, the usual. But there's also something else you need to see before you decide whether to take this contract." I raised an eyebrow. "I already said yes to the job." "You said yes to a Nevada delivery route. What I'm about to show you might change your mind." She nodded at the envelope. "Open it." I peeled away the tape and dumped the contents onto the table. Standard paperwork, delivery schedules, warehouse locations, fuel stop recommendations. But underneath the normal documents was a single sheet of paper, different from the others. It looked old, photocopied multiple times until the text had that fuzzy quality. At the top, in bold letters, driver protocols for Nevada routes 4, 7, and 11. Below that, a numbered list. 1. Never pick up hitchhikers regardless of apparent distress. No exceptions. 2. If you see a town called Silverpoint on your GPS or road signs, do not enter it. Drive through without stopping. Do not acknowledge anyone who waves at you from the roadside. 3. Keep your CB radio on channel 19, but do not respond to anyone using your name unless you initiated the conversation first. 4. If you encounter a rest stop with no other vehicles present between 2 a.m. and 4 a.m., do not use it. Continue to the next stop. 5. Certain roads have mile markers that don't match your odometer. If you notice your odometer showing more miles than the markers indicate, maintain your current speed and direction. Do not slow down or stop. 6. If your headlights illuminate a figure standing in the middle of the road, do not swerve. Maintain speed and direction. It will move. 7. In the event of mechanical failure on routes 4, 7, or 11 between midnight and dawn, remain in your cab with doors locked. Radio for assistance, but do not exit the vehicle until sunrise, even if someone stops to help. I read the list twice, then looked up at Sarah. She was watching my face with an expression I couldn't quite read. Not quite concerned, not quite apology. "Is this a joke?" I asked. "Some kind of hazing for new contract drivers?" "I wish it were." Sarah pulled a small notebook from her pocket and flipped it open. "In the past 5 years, Zenith has lost 11 drivers on these 3 routes. Lost as in they and their trucks completely disappeared. Another 6 have quit without notice after single runs, refusing to explain why. 3 more are in psychiatric facilities." The coffee suddenly tasted bitter. "Then why the hell are you still running freight through there?" "Because people need supplies. The towns along these routes, Tonopah, Goldfield, Rachel, depend on regular deliveries. And despite everything, most drivers complete their runs without incident. Most. 87% to be exact." Sarah closed her notebook. "I've been dispatching these routes for 12 years. I've seen enough pattern reports to know that the rules aren't superstition. They're survival instructions." I picked up the paper again, scanning the protocols. Silverpoint? I've driven through Nevada dozens of times. Never heard of any town called Silverpoint. Exactly, because it doesn't exist on any current map. But drivers report seeing it, signs, buildings, people standing at the town limits. The GPS shows it sometimes too, appearing between established waypoints. "That's not possible." Sarah leaned forward. "Marcus, I'm going to be straight with you. I have 3 cargo loads that need to reach Tonopah by Thursday. The regular driver for this route, Jeff Brennan, quit yesterday. Just walked in, threw his keys on my desk, and said he'd never drive through Nevada again. Wouldn't even stay long enough to collect his final paycheck. What did he see? He wouldn't say. Just kept repeating, 'I can't go back there,' and left." She tapped the rule sheet. "But according to his logbook, he followed every protocol perfectly on his previous runs. Completed 7 successful deliveries before whatever happened on run 8. I should have walked away right then. The smart play was obvious. Take the lost income, find another route, live to drive another day. But I had child support payments due in 2 weeks. My ex-wife's lawyer was already threatening garnishment, and the triple rate for a Nevada run would cover 3 months of obligations. "What's the cargo?" I asked. "Standard freight. Grocery supplies, mail, some electronics. Nothing unusual or hazardous. It's all properly manifested and inspected. And if something happens, if I see something that makes me want to abandon the route..." Sarah's expression hardened. "Then you follow Protocol 7. Stay in your cab until sunrise and radio me. But Marcus, if you take this contract, you complete the delivery. These communities depend on it. Breaking a contract with Zenith means you'll be blacklisted from every major freight company in the Southwest." The threat was clear. Take the job and finish it, or don't take it at all. I looked at the rules again. None of them seemed unreasonable on their surface. Don't pick up hitchhikers, standard safety protocol. Don't respond to strangers on the CB, common sense. Stay in your vehicle if you break down at night, probably smart in any remote area. But there was something about the specificity that bothered me. If you notice your odometer showing more miles than the markers indicate, what kind of road condition could cause that? And the part about figures in the road that will move. Move how? Move when? How long is the route? I asked. From here to Tonopah is approximately 380 miles. You'll take Highway 95 south, with scheduled stops in Fallon, Hawthorne, and Schurz. Total drive time should be about 6 to 7 hours, accounting for fuel stops and rest breaks. And these protocols, they apply to the entire route, specifically to routes 4, 7, and 11, which overlap with sections of Highway 95 and several county roads. The critical zones are marked on the map in your packet. Sarah pulled out a road map covered in highlighter marks, yellow for normal sections, red for protocol areas. There was a lot more red than I liked. What happened to the 11 drivers who disappeared? Different circumstances. 2 vanished from rest stops, left their trucks running, doors open, no sign of struggle. 3 reported mechanical failures and then went silent during overnight stops. The rest just never reached their destinations. Search parties found nothing. No trucks, no bodies, no evidence they'd ever been on those roads. What about the psychiatric cases? Sarah hesitated. Exposure to whatever happens out there. One driver claimed he delivered his cargo but came back speaking a language no one could identify. Another insisted he'd been driving for 3 days straight even though his logbook showed only 6 hours. The third, she trailed off. The third said he'd been driving the same mile of highway for 17 hours. That his odometer had stopped working and the mile markers kept repeating. He said every time he passed mile marker 247, there was something different standing by the roadside. First time, nothing. Second time, a coyote. Third time, a person. Fourth time, she shook her head. He stopped making sense after that. I should have walked away. Everything in my gut told me to stand up, thank Sarah for her time, and go find a nice safe route hauling furniture to California or maybe appliances up to Oregon. But I thought about the child support payments, about Amber's lawyer's smug voice on my voicemail, about sleeping in my truck because I couldn't afford an apartment anymore. I'll do it, I said. Sarah didn't smile or thank me. She just nodded like she'd known I would say yes all along. Your truck is loaded and waiting in Bay 7. Pre-trip inspection has been completed, but I recommend you check it again yourself. You leave in 1 hour. She stood to go, then paused. Marcus, one more thing. I've been dispatching these routes for 12 years, like I said. I've learned to recognize which drivers will make it back and which ones won't. And what category do I fall into? The ones who follow instructions. She held my gaze. Those rules aren't suggestions. They aren't guidelines. They're the difference between completion and disappearance. Don't test them. Don't try to rationalize them. Just follow them and you'll be fine. With that, she walked away, leaving me alone with my cooling coffee and a list of 7 impossible rules. I spent the next 40 minutes going over my truck with obsessive care. A Peterbilt 579 with less than 100,000 miles on it, practically new by trucking standards. The cargo trailer was sealed and tagged, the manifest showing exactly what Sarah had described. Groceries, mail, boxes labeled electronics, fragile. Everything checked out. Tires had good tread. Fluid levels were normal. Lights and signals all worked. I tested the CB radio running through all the major channels. Channel 19 came through clear, the usual chatter of drivers discussing traffic conditions and weather. By 9:30 p.m., I was pulling out of the Flying J with a full tank of diesel and a growing sense of unease I couldn't quite shake. The first 2 hours were normal. Highway 95 cut south through darkness, with only the occasional car passing in the opposite direction. I kept the CB on like instructed, listening to the scattered conversations of other truckers somewhere out in the night. Breaker, breaker. Anyone got eyes on the weather near Hawthorne? Over. Nothing but clear skies from what I can see. Smooth sailing tonight. 10-4, good buddy. Stay safe out there. Normal. Routine. The kind of chatter that made long drives bearable. I passed through Fallon around midnight, refueling at a well-lit truck stop with maybe a dozen other vehicles. Everything was fine. Normal. I grabbed a sandwich from a vending machine and used the restroom. A couple of other drivers nodded to me in passing. One asked where I was headed. Tonopah, I said. The driver, an older guy with a gray beard, paused. 95 south? Yeah. He studied me for a moment. You know the rules? The way he said it made my skin prickle. Not are you familiar with the route, or do you know the way? You know the rules. I've been briefed, I said carefully. He nodded slowly. Good. Follow them. Don't be a hero. Don't be curious. Just follow them. He turned to leave, then stopped. And if you see Silverpoint, keep driving. Before I could ask anything else, he was gone, disappearing into the parking lot. I stood there for a moment, unnerved, then headed back to my truck. The manila envelope sat on my passenger seat, the rule sheet visible on top of the stack. I picked it up and read through it again, this time paying closer attention to the specific details. Rule 2. If you see a town called Silverpoint on your GPS or road signs, do not enter it. Rule 5. If you notice your odometer showing more miles than the markers indicate, maintain speed and direction. Rule 6. If your headlights illuminate a figure standing in the middle of the road, do not swerve. I memorized each one, repeating them in my head until they became automatic. Then I folded the paper, tucked it into my sun visor where I could reach it easily, and pulled back onto Highway 95. The clock on my dashboard read 12:47 a.m. The night was about to get interesting. Mile marker 142 passed by my window at exactly 1:14 a.m. I'd been driving for nearly 4 hours, and the landscape had transformed from the scattered lights of civilization into pure darkness. No towns, no houses, not even the occasional ranch light breaking up the void. Just my headlights cutting through the night and the endless strip of asphalt rolling beneath my wheels. The CB radio crackled with static every few minutes, but no voices. I'd adjusted the squelch twice already, making sure it was set properly to channel 19. Everything seemed fine. Just atmospheric interference, probably. Common enough in remote areas. Then I saw the hitchhiker. He stood about 100 yards ahead on the right shoulder, illuminated by my headlights as I came around a curve. Young guy, maybe mid-20s, wearing a backpack and holding his thumb out in the universal sign. His other hand shielded his eyes from my lights. I eased my foot off the accelerator instinctively, the human response to seeing someone in need. My hand even started moving toward the turn signal. Then I remembered Rule 1. Never pick up hitchhikers, regardless of apparent distress. No exceptions. I pressed the accelerator again, maintaining my speed. The hitchhiker grew larger in my windshield as I approached. I could see more details now: faded jeans, worn hiking boots, a flannel shirt that had seen better days. He looked tired, desperate even. His thumb dropped and he started waving both arms, the universal signal for "please stop," I need help. My truck roared past him at 65 miles per hour. In my side mirror, I watched him turn to follow my taillights with his eyes. He didn't lower his arms, didn't move from his spot, just stood there, watching me disappear into the darkness. I told myself it was fine. He'd get another ride. Someone who wasn't bound by strange protocols would pick him up. He'd be okay. But something about the way he'd stood there, perfectly still except for his arms, not even swaying with fatigue, bothered me. And when I glanced in my mirror one final time before he vanished from view, I could have sworn he was smiling. At 1:42 a.m., the CB radio crackled to life. Marcus Webb. Just my name. Nothing else. The voice was male, middle-aged, casual, like someone calling out to a friend across a parking lot. I reached for the mic, my hand stopping halfway there. Rule 3. Keep your CB radio on channel 19, but do not respond to anyone using your name unless you initiated the conversation first. I hadn't initiated anything, hadn't called out my name or handles or asked for anyone specifically. Marcus Webb. The voice repeated. I know you can hear me, buddy. Just wanted to let you know there's a shortcut coming up in about 5 miles. County Road 839. Cuts 40 minutes off your route to Tonopah. Thought you might appreciate the heads up. My GPS showed no such road. I zoomed in on the map display. Highway 95 continued south with no significant intersections for another 30 miles. Marcus, are you still there? Come on, man. I'm trying to help you out. That delivery schedule's pretty tight, isn't it? This shortcut'll get you there early. Hell, you could even grab some sleep before the sun comes up. How did they know about my delivery schedule? I'd never mentioned being on a schedule. Never even keyed up my mic tonight. Suit yourself, the voice said with a laugh. But when you pass that County Road 839 turnoff, you're gonna kick yourself for not listening. Could have been in Tonopah by 3, catching Z's in a nice warm motel instead of out here in the cold desert. Your choice, buddy. The radio went silent. I kept driving, hands tight on the wheel, eyes scanning for any turnoff matching that description. 5 miles later, just like the voice had said, I saw a road sign. County Road 839 to Tonopah 47 miles. My GPS still showed nothing. According to my navigation system, there was no road here at all, just empty desert on either side of the highway. But the sign was real, physical, reflecting in my headlights. And beyond it, I could see a paved road stretching west into the darkness. 47 miles to Tonopah. I was currently looking at over 100 miles of driving on Highway 95 before I'd reach it. This route would cut my travel time more than in half. I slowed down slightly, watching the turnoff approach. The road looked well-maintained, not some abandoned county route. The asphalt was smooth, the center line freshly painted. It looked safer than most roads I'd driven on. Do not respond to anyone using your name unless you initiated the conversation first. I pressed the accelerator and drove past the turnoff without turning. In my rearview mirror, I watched the sign disappear into darkness. For just a moment, I could have sworn I saw something standing next to it, a tall figure silhouetted against the faint starlight. But when I blinked and looked again, there was nothing. The odometer turned over to 147 miles traveled at exactly 2:18 a.m. I'd been keeping careful track since leaving Reno, noting down mileage at each significant landmark and comparing it to the mile markers along the highway. Everything had matched up perfectly until now. Mile marker 186 passed by my window. I did the math in my head twice to make sure. I traveled 147 miles according to my odometer. But I was passing mile marker 186. That was a 39-mile discrepancy. Rule 5. Certain roads have mile markers that don't match your odometer. If you notice your odometer showing more miles than the markers indicate, maintain your current speed and direction. Do not slow down or stop. I tightened my grip on the steering wheel and kept my speed steady at 65 miles per hour. My eyes flicked between the road ahead and my dashboard instruments. Fuel level, 3/4. Engine temperature, normal. Oil pressure, normal. Everything was functioning perfectly. Mile marker 187 appeared. My odometer read 147.3 miles. Mile marker 188. Odometer, 147.6 miles. The markers were passing by too quickly, maybe twice as fast as they should. I wasn't speeding. My speedometer held steady at 65. But the mile markers kept coming faster than they should, each one appearing after only half the expected distance. Mile marker 189. Mile marker 190. Mile marker 191. My odometer climbed normally, 147.9, 148.2, 148.5. But the markers outside kept jumping ahead, creating an expanding gap between what my truck said I'd traveled and what the highway said I'd covered. I remembered Sarah's words about the driver who'd gone to the psychiatric facility, the one who insisted he'd passed the same mile marker repeatedly for 17 hours. Was this the beginning of something like that? Would the markers start repeating? Or would they just keep accelerating ahead of my actual distance until the numbers became meaningless? Maintain your current speed and direction. I focused on the white line at the edge of the road, using it as an anchor point. Didn't look at the markers. Didn't check my odometer. Just kept the truck centered in my lane and my speed constant. After what felt like an eternity but was probably only 10 minutes, I allowed myself a glance at both measurements. Odometer, 156.8 miles. Most recent mile marker, 202. Still wrong. Still impossible. But I was making forward progress, eating up actual distance even if the numbers didn't make sense. That was what mattered. I kept driving. Around 2:47 a.m., the discrepancy suddenly corrected itself. I passed mile marker 216, and my odometer read 166.2 miles. Still not matching, but the gap had narrowed from over 40 miles to less than 20. By mile marker 220, my odometer showed 170.4 miles. The gap was closing fast. Mile marker 225 passed as my odometer clicked over to 175 miles. Perfect match. My hands were shaking. I flexed my fingers, then gripped the wheel again, forcing myself to breathe steadily. Whatever had just happened, whatever impossible stretch of road I'd just driven through, it was over now. The numbers matched. Reality had reasserted itself. I couldn't help but think about the driver in the psychiatric facility. The one who'd said he'd been driving the same mile for 17 hours. How long had he tried to make sense of it before his mind broke? How long before he'd stopped believing in the reality of distance and markers and time? Don't try to rationalize them, Sarah had said. Just follow them. I was beginning to understand why. The rest stop appeared at exactly 3:33 a.m. My fuel gauge showed half a tank, plenty to make it to Tonopah, but my bladder was sending urgent signals that couldn't be ignored much longer. The sign for the rest area showed the standard amenities: restrooms, picnic tables, parking for trucks and cars. I slowed down, activating my turn signal. The rest stop came into view around a gentle curve. A standard desert facility with concrete restrooms, covered picnic areas, and streetlights casting pools of yellow illumination across the parking lot. Empty parking lot. Not a single vehicle. No cars, no other trucks, no RVs. Just empty asphalt and those yellow lights and the dark desert beyond. I remembered Rule 4. If you encounter a rest stop with no other vehicles present between 2 a.m. and 4 a.m., do not use it. Continue to the next stop. My foot moved from the brake back to the accelerator. I canceled my turn signal and drove past the entrance, watching the empty rest stops slide by in my peripheral vision. Something moved near the restrooms. I kept my eyes forward, not looking directly at whatever I'd seen in my peripheral vision. Movement at the edge of awareness. Something that had been standing perfectly still near the concrete building and had suddenly shifted position as I passed. My CB radio crackled. The bathroom's clean. Just got renovated last month. Same voice from before, the one who'd told me about the non-existent County Road 839. Paper towels, soap, everything's working. Even got hot water. Bet you could use a break about now. Couldn't you, Marcus? I didn't touch the mic. Come on, buddy. I can see you need a pit stop. It's safe. Look, I'm here right now. See me? Against my better judgment, I glanced in my side mirror. A figure stood in the parking lot, waving. Too far away and poorly lit for me to make out details, but definitely human-shaped. Definitely waving, like they wanted me to stop, to turn around, to come back. I'll wait for you, the voice on the CB said. Just turn around. Nothing bad here. Just clean bathrooms and a chance to stretch your legs. You've been driving for what, 6 hours now? You've got to be getting stiff. I'm telling you, Marcus, this is the last good stop for 50 miles. I watched the rest stop shrink in my mirrors. The figure kept waving, eventually starting to walk toward the road like they intended to follow my truck on foot. But the distance grew too great, and they faded into the darkness behind me. My bladder protested, but I ignored it. The next rest stop, according to my map, was 42 miles ahead. I'd make it. People had held it longer than that before. Your loss, the voice said, no longer friendly. The tone had shifted to something colder, harder. But you'll be back this way eventually. Maybe next time you won't be so quick to drive past. Maybe next time you'll be desperate enough to stop. Static consumed the channel, then silence. At 4:12 a.m., I saw Silverpoint for the first time. The GPS showed nothing, just a straight section of Highway 95 between Hawthorne and Tonopah, with no towns marked for another 30 miles. But there on the right side of the road, illuminated in my headlights, a green highway sign with an arrow pointing to an exit ramp. Silverpoint POP 2847 next right. Below the population number, smaller text, a friendly desert community. I maintained my speed, keeping my eyes forward, but I couldn't help glancing to the right as the exit appeared. Buildings. Actual buildings, not ruins or abandoned structures. I could see streetlights, houses with illuminated windows, even what looked like a gas station with its price sign glowing. A small town, nestled in a valley I hadn't noticed on any map. People stood at the town limits, maybe a dozen of them, lined up along the road like they were waiting for something. As my headlights swept across them, they all turned to look at my truck. Then, in perfect unison, they waved. Not the casual wave of friendly locals greeting a passing truck. This was synchronized, mechanical, all of them raising their right hands at exactly the same moment, holding the gesture for exactly the same duration, then lowering their hands together like a choreographed performance. I pressed harder on the accelerator, pushing my speed up to 70 miles per hour. The exit ramp slid past. The town disappeared behind me, but in my side mirror I could see them, all dozen figures, still standing in perfect formation at the town limits, still waving in unison, even though I was already half a mile away and getting farther every second. My GPS showed nothing but empty desert where Silverpoint should have been. The map had no record of any town, no exit ramp, no population of 2,847 friendly desert community members. According to my navigation system, I'd just driven past absolutely nothing. But I'd seen it. The buildings, the lights, the people. Do not acknowledge anyone who waves at you from the roadside. I hadn't acknowledged them, hadn't waved back, hadn't honked my horn, hadn't even slowed down more than necessary. I'd followed the rule perfectly. So why did I feel like I just narrowly avoided something terrible? The figure appeared in my headlights at 4:47 a.m. with no warning. One moment, the road ahead was empty. The next, someone was standing directly in the middle of my lane, maybe 100 feet ahead. My hands jerked the wheel instinctively, preparing to swerve around them. Rule 6. If your headlights illuminate a figure standing in the middle of the road, do not swerve. Maintain speed and direction. It will move. Every instinct I had screamed at me to turn the wheel. 65 miles per hour in a fully loaded semi-truck. I would hit them before I could even process what was happening. The impact would kill them instantly. 18,000 pounds of metal and cargo versus human flesh and bone. 90 feet. I could see more details now. A woman in a white dress, dark hair hanging loose around her shoulders. She stood perfectly still, facing my truck head-on like she was daring me to hit her. 80 feet. My foot lifted off the accelerator reflexively, even though I knew I should maintain speed. But how could I? How could I just barrel into another human being? 70 feet. It will move. Sarah's voice in my memory. Those rules aren't suggestions. They're the difference between completion and disappearance. I slammed my foot back down on the accelerator and gripped the wheel with both hands, locking my elbows to prevent any unconscious swerving. Straight ahead. Maintain speed and direction. 60 feet. The woman didn't move, didn't flinch, didn't show any sign she even registered the 40-ton truck bearing down on her at highway speed. 50 feet. I could see her face now. Young, maybe early 20s. Pretty features twisted into something that wasn't quite a smile, wasn't quite a grimace. Her eyes reflected my headlights like an animal's. Flat, bright discs with no pupils visible. 40 feet. Move, I whispered. Please move. 30 feet, 20 feet, 10. She stepped aside. Not a jump or a dive, just a casual sidestep, like she was letting someone pass on a sidewalk. One moment she was directly in front of my truck. The next she was standing on the shoulder, still facing forward, still wearing that not quite smile. I didn't hit the brakes, didn't slow down, maintained speed and direction just like the rule said. My truck roared past her at 65 miles per hour, close enough that I should have felt the impact of displaced air. In my side mirror, she turned her head to watch me pass. Those reflective eyes tracked my taillights. Then she stepped back into the middle of the road and became still again, waiting for the next vehicle. How long had she been standing there? How many drivers had swerved to avoid her? And what happened to the ones who left the road? I didn't want to know. Dawn was approaching when I saw the other truck. Not another commercial vehicle, this was a pickup, an older Ford model by the shape, sitting on the shoulder with its hazard lights blinking weakly. A figure stood next to it, hood raised, apparently working on the engine. My clock showed 5:42 a.m. Sunrise was at 6:03 a.m. according to my GPS. 21 minutes until dawn. Rule 7. In the event of mechanical failure on routes 4, 7, or 11 between midnight and dawn, remain in your cab with doors locked. Radio for assistance, but do not exit the vehicle until sunrise, even if someone stops to help. But that rule was for my mechanical failure, not someone else's. And they were clearly in trouble, broken down in the middle of nowhere, probably hours from the nearest town. I slowed my truck, pulling onto the shoulder about 30 feet behind the pickup. The figure by the hood turned at the sound of my engine, raising a hand to shield their eyes from my headlights. Male, probably mid-40s, wearing a Carhartt jacket and work boots. Grease stained his hands. His face showed the kind of weathering that comes from years of outdoor work. He looked relieved to see me, stepping away from the engine compartment and walking toward my cab. I rolled down my window but didn't open the door. "Morning," the man called out. His voice sounded strained, tired. "Thanks for stopping. The battery died about an hour ago. Haven't seen another vehicle since midnight. You got someone you can call?" I asked. "AAA or a friend nearby?" He shook his head. "Cell service is non-existent out here. I've been trying to flag down help, but you're the first person to stop." He wiped his hands on his jeans. "Don't suppose you've got jumper cables? Just need a quick start. Then I can limp into Tonopah." Something about the situation felt wrong. Not the man himself, he seemed genuine enough. Not the truck. It looked like exactly what it appeared to be, an old Ford with electrical problems. But something at the edge of my awareness was setting off alarm bells. Then I noticed the hazard lights. They were blinking in perfect rhythm. Not the slightly irregular flash of actual emergency flashers, which always have minor variations in timing. These were metronomic, exact, like they were being controlled by a computer rather than a mechanical relay. "I've got cables," I said carefully, "but I'm not supposed to stop until sunrise. Company policy for these routes." The man's face fell. "Sunrise? That's another 20 minutes at least. Come on, buddy. I'm freezing out here. 5 minutes, that's all I need. Jump the battery, get the engine running, and you can be on your way. Sorry, I can radio for help. I don't need help in 20 minutes. I need help now." His voice had an edge to it suddenly, frustration breaking through the friendly facade. "You're just going to leave me here? What kind of person does that?" "The kind who follows the rules," I said quietly. His expression changed. The weathered, tired look fell away like a mask being removed, replaced by something else entirely. His eyes went flat, reflective, like the woman in the white dress. That same animal shine. "Rules," he repeated, and his voice had changed too. Deeper, layered, like multiple people speaking in unison. You people and your rules. Do you think they'll protect you forever? Do you think there won't be a night when you're the one broken down, calling for help, wondering why no one stops? I reached for my gear shift, preparing to put the truck in drive. Wait, the thing wearing the man's face held up both hands. I'm not supposed to break protocol either. Just wanted to see if you would. You passed. Congratulations, Marcus Webb. You're smarter than most. Who are you? Someone who works different shifts on these roads. Smiled, and there were too many teeth. We have rules too, you know. Can't touch the ones who follow instructions perfectly. But the others. The smile widened. The others are fair game. The hitchhiker I passed. The voice on the CB. Were those you too? Tests. All tests. Some drivers are easier than others. Wave a shortcut in front of them. Promise a warm bed. Show them someone in distress. Everyone has a weakness. Everyone has a moment where they think maybe, just once, breaking a rule won't matter. And the town? Silverpoint? The thing's smile faded. That's not mine. That's older. Much older. We don't go there either. We have our territories, our jurisdictions. Silverpoint is... Paused like it was choosing words carefully. Special. I noticed the sky was getting lighter. Not much, just the barest hint of gray at the eastern horizon, but enough to indicate dawn was approaching. Sunrise is coming, I said. Yes. The thing looked toward the horizon, and something like concern crossed its face. Time for me to wrap up here. Good driving, Marcus Webb. You might actually make it through your contract. I turned back to the pickup truck. What happens to the ones who don't make it? Depends on what rules they break and where they break them. Some disappear. Some change. Some end up driving the same roads forever, stuck in loops of their own making. It opened the pickup's door. But you won't have to worry about that, will you? Because you're a follower. What about Jeff Brennan, the driver before me? What did he see? The thing paused, 1 foot on the running board. Ah, Jeff. He lasted 7 runs. Very impressive. But on the 8th, he picked up a hitchhiker about 60 miles south of here. Young woman. Said she'd been assaulted and needed help getting to safety. He couldn't leave her out there. She seemed so real, so human. What happened? She was real. She was human. Just not from here, not from this when. She'd been waiting for a ride for 40 years. Ever since the night she was murdered on the stretch of highway in 1983. When Jeff picked her up, she stayed with him. Rode in his cab all the way to Tonopah, talking about her life, her plans, how grateful she was for his help. And when he dropped her off at the address she gave him, a house that had burned down in 1985, she thanked him and walked toward the ruins. The thing climbed fully into the pickup. Jeff watched her fade away as she approached the foundation. I watched her become translucent, then transparent, then nothing. He drove back to Reno, quit on the spot, and hasn't spoken a complete sentence since. Last I heard, he just sits in his apartment, staring at the wall, occasionally asking, was she real? Over and over. Turned the key. The pickup's engine roared to life instantly. No struggling, no weak battery, just immediate perfect ignition. She was real, the thing said through the open window. That's what broke him. Not that he'd seen a ghost, but that he'd helped a real person who'd been suffering for 40 years, only to watch her vanish into nothing. The kindness that damned him was still kindness. That's the cruelty of it, Marcus. Sometimes the right thing to do is still the wrong thing to do. The pickup pulled onto the highway and accelerated south, taillights disappearing into the fading darkness. I sat there for a long moment, watching the eastern horizon brighten, waiting for the sun to actually break the horizon before I continued. When golden light finally touched the desert at exactly 6:03 a.m., I put my truck in gear and drove. I reached Tonopah at 7:34 a.m., pulling into the warehouse district with my nerves frayed and my hands still shaking despite having had an hour of normal daylight driving. The loading dock supervisor, a heavy-set man named Rodriguez, checked my manifest and directed me to Bay 3 for unloading. The process took 45 minutes, pallets of groceries, boxes of electronics, mail bags, all the normal supplies a small desert town needed to function. No one mentioned the rules. No one asked about my drive. Rodriguez made small talk about weather and sports while his crew worked, just another normal delivery to another normal town. When I climbed back into my cab, Sarah's number was already showing on my phone screen. Incoming call. "You made it," she said when I answered. No greeting, no pleasantries, just that simple observation. I followed the rules. "I know. I've been monitoring your progress. Your GPS tracker showed some interesting patterns around mile marker 186. And there was a 40-minute window where your transponder went dark near the Silverpoint coordinates. But you kept moving, kept following protocol. The thing I talked to near dawn, the one pretending to be a broken-down driver, said everyone has a weakness, a moment where they think breaking a rule won't matter. That's true. And it's also the reason most drivers don't last more than a handful of runs. The rules work, but they go against every human instinct we have. Leaving someone stranded, not investigating distress calls, driving past towns that look perfectly normal. It takes a special kind of discipline to keep doing that over and over. Or a special kind of callousness. Maybe. Or maybe just a clear understanding that in certain places, at certain times, the normal rules of human behavior don't apply. The desert has its own logic, Marcus. Its own laws. We're just borrowing the roads. I watched Rodriguez's crew close up the trailer, sealing it for the return journey. What about the hitchhiker Jeff picked up? The woman from 1983. Silence on the line for a long moment. Then, "I don't know what you're talking about." The thing told me. It said Jeff picked up a hitchhiker who turned out to be Marcus. Sarah's voice had gone hard. "Listen to me very carefully. I don't know what you saw or heard out there last night, but there are things we don't discuss. Not over the phone, not in reports, not ever. Jeff Brennan completed 7 successful deliveries and then resigned for personal reasons. That's the official record. That's the only record. But that's the only record. Do you understand?" I understood. Whatever happened on these roads, whatever drivers encountered, it stayed unofficial, undocumented, spoken about only in vague terms and cryptic warnings passed between truckers at rest stops. "I understand," I said. "Good. Your return load is waiting in Bay 6. Different cargo, mining equipment parts, medical supplies, and some refrigerated goods. You'll take Highway 95 north, retracing your route. All the same rules apply. You want me to do this again tonight?" "Not tonight. You're off rotation for 48 hours. Rest, decompress, process what you experienced. Then, if you're willing, you go back out. That's how the contract works. 2 runs per week until the 6-month term is complete. 24 runs total. 24 opportunities to make a mistake, to have a moment of weakness, to break a rule and end up like one of the disappeared or the psychiatric cases or Jeff Brennan staring at walls and asking if ghosts are real. And if I want out, if I decide this isn't worth the triple rate, then you're blacklisted from every major carrier in the Southwest, just like I told you. But you already knew that was the deal when you signed on. The question is, Marcus, can you do this 23 more times? I looked at the highway stretching north toward Reno. In daylight, it looked normal, safe. Just another desert road with mile markers and faded paint and the occasional tumbleweed rolling across the lanes. But I knew what it became after dark. What waited in the spaces between mile markers at empty rest stops, in towns that didn't exist on any map. I'll do it, I said. I thought you might. Safe driving, Marcus. And remember, I know. Follow the rules. She hung up. The return trip was uneventful, which somehow made it worse. Every mile marker I passed, I expected something to appear. Every car that passed in the opposite direction might be them, testing me again. Every town I drove through might suddenly have more buildings than it should, more streets than mapped, populations that didn't match census records. But nothing happened. I drove from Tonopah to Hawthorne to Fallon to Reno without incident, pulling into the Flying J truck stop at 3:47 p.m. with my cargo delivered and my contract obligation fulfilled for the week. I was $3,000 richer and significantly less certain about the nature of reality. I didn't sleep well that night. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw the woman in the white dress stepping aside at the last possible moment, or the people of Silverpoint waving in perfect unison, or the thing that pretended to be a stranded driver, smiling with too many teeth. By the second night, I developed a routine. Coffee at midnight, checking news reports for accidents or disappearances on Highway 95. There were always some, but I couldn't tell which were natural and which were rule violations, and reading through the protocol sheet over and over until the words lost meaning. On my third night off, I went to a trucker bar in Reno called The Last Stop. The irony of the name wasn't lost on me. The place was half full, which meant maybe 20 drivers scattered across the booths and tables, nursing beers and swapping stories. I recognized a few faces from the Flying J, but didn't know any of them personally. I was halfway through my second beer when someone slid into the booth across from me. The older driver with the gray beard, the one who'd asked me at the Fallon rest stop if I knew the rules. "You made it back," he said. "That's good. That's real good. You were testing me when you asked about the rules. Wasn't testing, just confirming. You had the look, that careful way new Nevada drivers hold themselves. Like they're not sure if what they've been told is real, or just some elaborate practical joke." He flagged down the waitress and ordered whiskey. "Neat. I'm Carl Jennings. Driven these routes for 11 years. 11 years? How many runs is that? Lost count after 500. Maybe 6 or 7 times that by now. I take every route they offer, 95, 375, 318, all the weird ones. Build up a tolerance, you could say. Tolerance to what?" Carl's whiskey arrived. He took a sip before answering. "To the wrongness of it. The first time you experience something impossible, it breaks something in your brain. The piece that says, 'This can't be real.' The second time is almost as bad. But by the 10th, 20th, 100th time, you just accept it. The desert does what the desert does. You follow the rules, you get through. You don't, you become part of it. The thing that looked like a stranded driver told me some people end up driving the same roads forever, stuck in loops. Yeah, I've heard about those. Never seen one myself, but other drivers tell stories. Guy who passes you at mile marker 170 heading south, then passes you again at mile marker 175, same direction, same speed, like he's stuck on repeat. Or the trucker who supposedly delivers to Tonopah every night for eternity, dropping off the same cargo over and over, not knowing he died 3 years ago. I thought about Jeff Brennan and the hitchhiker from 1983. Are the ghosts real? Carl studied me for a moment. You pick someone up? No, but I heard about a previous driver who did. Then yeah, they're probably real. As real as anything else out there, anyway. The desert's old, Marcus. Been around a lot longer than highways or towns or us. Things die out there and sometimes they don't stay dead. They just keep waiting, repeating their last moments, hoping someone will help them move on. And if we do help them, then we pay the price. Because that's how it works. Every act of kindness, every broken rule, every moment of human compassion creates a debt. And the desert always collects. He finished his whiskey in one swallow. That's why the rules exist. Not to make us cruel, but to protect us from our own decency. A woman approached our booth. Late 30s, black hair pulled back in a ponytail, wearing a Zenith Logistics jacket. She looked familiar. I'd seen her photo on the dispatch office wall, part of the Driver of the Month recognition board. You're the new 95 driver, she said to me. Marcus Webb, right? That's me.
I'm Angela Torres.
Used to run the same routes you're doing now. I switched to Oregon runs about 6 months ago. She looked at Carl. Mind if I join? Carl gestured to the booth seat next to him. Angela slid in, flagging the waitress for a beer. Oregon routes pay less, I said. Why switch? Because I started seeing Silverpoint every single run. Not just once a trip, 3, 4, sometimes 5 times. Different locations, different exits, but always the same town. Same population number. Same people waving. She accepted her beer from the waitress. The rules say don't enter it, don't acknowledge the people. They don't say what happens when the town starts following you. Following you? Mile 186, mile 204, mile 229. Silverpoint exits appeared at all of them on my last run. Each time, more people standing at the town limits. First time, a dozen. Second time, maybe 20. Third time, she took a long drink. There must have been 50 of them, all waving in perfect sync. I filed a report with dispatch and said I needed reassignment for medical reasons. That was enough to get me off the Nevada route. Did dispatch believe you? Dispatch knows. They've always known. Sarah's been there 12 years. You think she hasn't seen pattern reports? Hasn't correlated driver complaints with disappearances? Angela leaned forward. The company could shut these routes down, could refuse to service these towns, forcing the government to find alternative supply methods. But they don't, because the triple rate means they can keep finding drivers willing to take the risk. So we're expendable, I said. We're survivors, Carl corrected. The ones who don't make it back are the ones who break protocol. Follow the rules perfectly every single time and you'll be fine. That's the contract, not the one you signed with Zenith, but the real one. The one with whatever's out there in the desert. We sat in silence for a while, 3 drivers who'd seen things we couldn't talk about officially. Couldn't report without risking our livelihoods. Couldn't explain to anyone who hadn't driven these roads. Does it get easier? I finally asked. Carl and Angela exchanged a look. No. They said in unison. My second run came on schedule, Friday night, same route, same protocols. This time I knew what to expect, which somehow made it worse. The hitchhiker was different this time. An older woman with a suitcase, looking desperate and cold. I drove past without slowing. The CB voice offered a different shortcut. This one even more tempting. County Road 512, Marcus. Gets you to Tonopah in 90 minutes. Smooth sailing. I kept my radio on but didn't respond. The odometer discrepancy happened at a different location. Mile marker 163 this time instead of 186. But I'd been ready for it and had already memorized the protocol. Maintain speed and direction. The rest stop was empty again, but this time 2 figures stood near the restrooms instead of one. Both waving, both speaking to me through the CB, voices overlapping. Clean bathroom, hot coffee, safe parking. I drove past. Silverpoint appeared 3 times this run, just like Angela had warned me about. Different locations each time, but always the same sign, same population number, same people at the town limits. Each time there were more of them. First appearance, maybe 15 people. Second, 25. Third, I stopped counting at 40. They all waved. The figure in the road was a child this time, maybe 8 years old, wearing pajamas like he'd just walked out of his house. I maintained speed and direction. He stepped aside at the last possible moment, and when I looked in my mirror, he waved at my departing truck with a gesture that looked almost sad.
No mechanical breakdowns.
No supernatural entities pretending to need help. I arrived in Tonopah at 7:43 a.m., delivered my cargo, loaded up for the return trip, and made it back to Reno by 4 p.m. 2 runs down, 22 to go. The pattern continued. Every week, 2 runs. Every run, the same tests with slight variations. Different hitchhikers, different shortcut offers, different figures standing in different places. But always the same rules, always the same protocols. By my 8th run, I'd memorized every mile marker on Highway 95 between Reno and Tonopah. Could recite them in order forward and backward. Knew which rest stops appeared on GPS versus which ones only showed up in the middle of the night. Had learned to recognize the subtle differences between normal desert darkness and the specific quality of shadow that indicated something wrong. I'd also learned to identify other Nevada route drivers. We had a look, a certain wariness, a habit of checking mirrors more often than necessary, and a tendency to avoid certain topics in conversation. When we passed each other on the highway, we'd flash our lights in acknowledgement. Fellow survivors of something we couldn't name. On my 12th run, I met the thing that pretended to be a stranded driver again. Same pickup truck, same hazard lights, but a different face this time. A woman instead of a man, younger, with kind eyes and a genuine smile. "Hello again, Marcus," she called out when I slowed but didn't stop. Still following the rules, I see. Still being smart. That's good. That's very good. "What do you want?" I asked through my open window. "Want? I don't want anything from you. I'm just here to congratulate you. 12 runs completed. That's more than most. You're in the top 20 percentile of Nevada route survivors. Is there a ranking system? Of course, we keep track. It's entertaining watching you all navigate the protocols. seeing who lasts longest, betting on who'll break first and which rule they'll violate. She leaned against the pickup's hood. Jeff Brennan lasted 7 runs before breaking Rule 1. Angela Torres made it to 42 before Silverpoint started appearing too frequently. Carl Jennings is our current record holder at, well, I won't spoil his count. But you're doing well, Marcus. Better than expected. Why tell me this? Because fair warning is part of our rules too. You're approaching the halfway point of your contract. That's when it gets interesting. When the tests become more personalized. When we start using information we've gathered about you specifically. What information? The thing smiled. Where your daughter lives, for instance. Amanda Webb, age 7, residing in Henderson with your ex-wife. She likes purple, wants to be a veterinarian, and has a birthmark shaped like a crescent moon on her left shoulder. My blood went cold. Stay away from her. We're not interested in your daughter, Marcus. We're interested in you. But imagine if you saw her standing by the roadside. If she waved at you, called your name, said she needed her daddy's help. Could you drive past then? Could you follow Rule 1 if the hitchhiker was her? I didn't answer. That's the test coming up. Not on your next run, maybe not for several more. But eventually, probably around run 16 or 17, you'll see something that makes perfect rule adherence almost impossible. Something personal enough, dear enough, that breaking protocol will feel like the only moral choice. And then we find out if you're a follower or a father. If rules matter more than love. If survival trumps sacrifice. The thing pushed off from the pickup. I'm rooting for you, Marcus. I really am. You're one of the smart ones. It would be a shame to lose you because of your attachment to people you barely see anymore anyway. It climbed into the pickup and drove away, leaving me sitting there with dawn approaching and a new fear settling into my bones. Run 13, 14, 15, each one without incident, which only made the tension worse. The thing had warned me, said the personalized test was coming. Every hitchhiker I passed, every figure in the road, every voice on the CB, I analyzed them all, looking for the specific horror designed just for me. But it didn't come. By run 16, I'd convinced myself it had been a bluff. Just another test, this time playing on anticipation rather than immediate threat. Then came run 17. Everything was normal until mile marker 194, when I saw the car. A silver Honda Accord, hazard lights blinking, pulled onto the shoulder. Not unusual, cars broke down all the time. But this particular model, this specific color, was the same car my ex-wife drove. I slowed down, telling myself it couldn't be. Amber was in Henderson, 4 hours away. No reason for her to be on Highway 95 in the middle of the night. This was just a coincidence, just another test using information they'd gathered. But as I approached, I saw the license plate. 7BXY329. Nevada plates. The exact number registered to Amber Webb. A woman stood next to the driver's door, waving at me with both arms. Even from a distance, even in the harsh glare of my headlights, she looked exactly like Amber. Same height, same build, same way of moving. I pulled onto the shoulder 40 feet behind the Honda, my hands shaking on the wheel. Rule 7. Remain in your cab with doors locked. Radio for assistance, but do not exit the vehicle. But that rule only applied to my mechanical failure, not someone else's. And this wasn't just someone. If this was really Amber, if she was really here, stranded, The woman walked toward my truck. As she got closer, I could see her face more clearly through my windshield. It was Amber. Not someone who looked like her, it was her. The small scar above her left eyebrow from a childhood bike accident. The way she tucked her hair behind her ear when she was nervous. The exact shade of green in her eyes that had made me fall in love with her 9 years ago. She reached my passenger door and knocked on the window. "Marcus? Oh, thank God, Marcus, it's really you. I can't believe I've been stuck here for hours. My phone died and no one else stopped and..." Her voice broke. She pressed her hand against the glass. "Please, I need help. I need to get to Henderson. Amanda's sick. They called me from the hospital and I was trying to get there fast, but the car just died and..." Amanda. Sick. Hospital. Every parental instinct I had screamed at me to open that door, to help, to get Amber to wherever she needed to go so she could be with our daughter. But I remembered what the thing had told me. Imagine if you saw her. If she called your name, said she needed her daddy's help. "Prove you're real," I said through the glass. She blinked. "What? Marcus, it's me. You know it's me. We were married for 6 years. We have a daughter together. We..." What did Amanda say the first time she saw snow? Amber's face twisted in confusion and fear. "What? Why are you asking me that right now? Our daughter is in the hospital and you're..." "Answer the question." "I don't know. She was 3, Marcus. It was years ago." She probably said, "Cold," or "pretty," or one of 1,000 things toddlers say when they see something new for the first time. Why does it matter? It mattered because I remembered exactly what Amanda had said. I remembered the moment perfectly. Christmas visit to my parents in Minnesota. Amanda seeing snow for the first time. Her face lighting up as she turned to us and said, perfectly clearly, "Daddy, look, the sky is breaking." It had become our family joke. Something Amber and I had referenced 100 times. Something the real Amber would remember instantly. "Get away from my truck," I said. "Marcus, please, you're not her. I don't know what you are, but you're not my wife. Get away from my truck right now." The thing wearing Amber's face dropped the desperate expression. The tears dried up instantly. It smiled, and this time the smile didn't match Amber's face at all. Too wide, too knowing. "Smart boy," it said in a voice that was no longer Amber's. "You're absolutely right. I'm not her, but I could have been. If you'd opened this door, if you'd let me in your cab, I would have become her. Perfectly, completely. Every memory, every mannerism, every detail. You'd have driven all the way to Henderson convinced you were helping your ex-wife, never knowing you'd picked up something else entirely. What happens then? When we reach Henderson, then you'd have delivered me directly to where your daughter lives. And I'd have walked right up to that front door, and your real ex-wife would have let me in without question. Because I'd look exactly like you, sound exactly like you, have all your memories of Amanda, all the pet names, all the inside jokes, all the ways a father comforts his scared little girl. I felt sick. "But you didn't open the door," it continued. "You followed the protocol. You questioned, you tested, and you maintained boundaries. So your daughter stays safe and you stay on schedule and the rules stay unbroken." I stepped away from the truck. 16 more runs, Marcus. Can you do this 16 more times without making a single mistake? I'll do what I have to do. Yes, yes, you will. That's what makes you interesting. It walked back toward the Honda. "Drive safe." I watched in my mirror as the thing climbed into the driver's seat. The Honda's engine started immediately. No mechanical failure, no actual breakdown. Just another test. The car pulled onto the highway and accelerated north, disappearing into the darkness. I sat there until my hands stopped shaking enough to drive, then continued south toward Tonopah. My phone buzzed as the sun came up. Text message from Amber. Amanda has been asking about you. Maybe we can arrange a visit next month? She was fine. Amanda was fine. They were home in Henderson, safe, unaware that something had just tried to use me as a doorway to reach them. I responded, "Sounds good. Love you both." Then I deleted the message thread and kept driving. The rest of my contract passed in a blur of identical runs. Same routes, same rules, same tests with different faces. I saw my parents standing by the roadside. Saw my best friend from high school waving from an exit ramp. Saw my daughter 3 more times in various forms, as a hitchhiker, as a figure in the road, once even as a voice on the CB singing the lullaby I used to sing to her. I drove past all of them. By running 23, I'd become mechanical about it. Didn't even feel the emotional impact anymore. Didn't question whether the people I saw were real or fabricated. Just followed the protocols, maintained speed and direction, completed deliveries on schedule. Carl had been right. You build up a tolerance. The wrongness becomes normal. The impossible becomes routine. On my 24th and final run, Sarah called me as I was loading cargo in Reno. "Last one," she said. "How are you feeling?" "Tired. Ready to be done." "You've done well, Marcus. 96 successful deliveries over 6 months. That puts you in the top 5 percentile of Nevada route drivers. Zenith wants to offer you a contract extension. Another 6 months at quadruple rate. Quadruple rate. That was over $10,000 a month. Enough to pay off my child support backlog completely. Buy Amanda everything she needed, maybe even save enough for her college fund. "I need time to think about it," I said. "Take a week. Complete this last run. Rest up. Then let me know. The offer stands until the end of the month." She hung up. I finished loading, ran through my pre-trip inspection, and pulled onto Highway 95 at exactly 10 p.m. for the 48th time. The drive was perfect. Every rule followed exactly. Every test navigated successfully. By the time I reached Tonopah at dawn, I'd convinced myself the universe was being kind for my final run. Let me finish clean. Then, on the return trip at mile marker 186, I saw the hitchhiker. A young man, early 20s, with a backpack and flannel shirt. Exactly like the first one I'd seen on my very first run 6 months ago. Same posture, same thumb out, same desperate expression. I prepared to drive past without slowing, just like all the other times. Then I noticed something different. He was holding a sign, handwritten cardboard, barely visible in my headlights. "Marcus, please, I'm real. My name is Tyler Brennan, Jeff's son. I should have kept driving. Should have maintained speed. Followed Rule 1, completed my contract without deviation. But instead, I found my foot moving to the brake. Jeff Brennan, the driver who'd picked up the hitchhiker from 1983, the one who'd quit and couldn't stop asking, was she real? I pulled onto the shoulder and unlocked my passenger door. The young man approached cautiously, like he couldn't believe I'd actually stopped. He climbed into the cab, bringing cold desert air and the smell of dust with him. "Thank you," he said, voice hoarse. I've been standing out there for 6 hours. You're the 43rd truck that's passed without stopping. Your father is Jeff Brennan? Was. He died 3 weeks ago. Walked into Lake Tahoe with rocks in his pockets. They said it was suicide, but he trailed off. I've been trying to understand what happened to him, why he changed. I found a notebook in his apartment, pages and pages about Nevada routes and rules, and something about a hitchhiker who disappeared. I had to see for myself. You shouldn't be out here. These roads are dangerous. I know. I've seen things tonight that shouldn't exist. But I needed to understand. Needed to know if my dad was crazy, or if there really is something wrong with this highway. Tyler looked at me with desperate eyes. Please, can you just tell me the truth? What did my father see out here? I thought about Rule 1, about the 11 drivers who disappeared, about Jeff sitting in his apartment asking if ghosts were real before walking into a lake. I thought about lying, about telling Tyler his father had a mental breakdown from the isolation and stress of long-haul driving. That there was nothing supernatural about these routes. But instead, I told him the truth. All of it. The rules, the tests, the things that wore familiar faces, the town that didn't exist, the ghosts who waited for rides that never came. Your father picked up a woman who'd been dead for 40 years, I said. She was real and not real at the same time. He helped her, and it broke something in him. That's what this place does. It makes you choose between being human and being safe. And once you see what happens when you choose humanity, you can't unsee it. Tyler listened to everything without interruption. When I finished, he was quiet for a long time. Thank you, he finally said. That's what I needed to hear. That he wasn't crazy. That what he saw was real, even if no one else could believe it. Where do you need to go? Reno. I've got a bus ticket back to Sacramento. I nodded and pulled back onto the highway. The sun was fully up now, the desert looking ordinary and safe in morning light. We drove in silence for 20 minutes before Tyler spoke again. Are you going to keep driving these routes? I thought about Zenith's offer. Quadruple rate for 6 more months. Another 48 runs through an impossible country. Another 1,000 opportunities to break a rule and vanish like the others. I thought about Amanda asking to visit. About being present in her life instead of just a voice on the phone and checks in the mail. I thought about Jeff Brennan walking into Lake Tahoe with rocks in his pockets. No, I said. This was my last run. Because of what you've seen? Because of what I know I'll see eventually. There's only so many times you can drive past people who need help before you stop being able to live with yourself. I'd rather be broke than broken. I dropped Tyler at the Greyhound station in Reno at 11:30 a.m. He thanked me again and disappeared into the crowd of travelers. I sat in my truck for a long time after that, staring at Sarah's number on my phone. The offer was still open. Quadruple rate. Financial security. All I had to do was keep driving the same routes, keep following the same rules, keep becoming a little less human with each run. Instead, I called my ex-wife. Ember? It's Marcus. About that visit with Amanda, how about next weekend? I'm going to be staying in Henderson for a while, looking for a new job. I think it's time I stopped driving long haul and started being around more. We talked for 20 minutes about visitation schedules and apartment hunting and all the normal logistics of co-parenting. Felt good. Real. Human. When I hung up, I called Sarah. I'm declining the extension, I said. This contract is complete. I'm done with Nevada routes. She was quiet for a moment. Can I ask why? You're one of our best drivers. Perfect record across 6 months. Because I just broke Rule 1, I said. And I don't regret it, which means I can't be trusted to follow the protocols anymore. I see. Will you be returning to long-haul work? No, I'm getting out of trucking entirely. Going to find something local. Something normal. Normal. She said the word like it was a foreign concept. Well, Marcus, I wish you the best. You lasted longer than most. Be proud of that. I'm not proud. I'm just grateful to still be myself. I hung up before she could respond. 6 months later, I was working as a delivery driver for a medical supply company in Henderson. Short routes, daylight hours only, no highways stretching through empty desert. My apartment was 10 minutes from Amber's house. I had Amanda every other weekend and Wednesday evenings for dinner. I didn't drive at night anymore. Didn't take unfamiliar routes. Didn't listen to CB radio. Sometimes I still saw them, though. Hitchhikers standing by the roadside in broad daylight, watching traffic pass. Empty rest stops that showed up on my GPS but not on any physical signs. Figures that appeared in my peripheral vision and vanished when I looked directly at them. But they didn't approach, didn't test me. I'd left their territory, broken their contract, chosen the human world over their protocols. I heard from Carl once, an email with no subject line, just a message. Made it to 500 runs, thinking about retiring, miss the normal world, if there even is one anymore. I never heard from Angela or any of the other Nevada route drivers. We'd all seen too much to stay in touch, to be reminded of what we'd experienced out there. But sometimes, late at night, I'd find myself looking at maps, tracing Highway 95 with my finger, remembering the rules, wondering if Tyler ever went back, if he found what he was looking for, if understanding had brought him peace or just more questions. Mostly, though, I tried not to think about it. Tried to focus on Amanda's school projects and Amber's new job and the normal problems of normal life. Because the truth is, once you know the rules exist, once you understand that there are places where human decency becomes a liability, you can never fully forget, can never fully relax, can never be certain that the person waving from the roadside is really a person at all. All you can do is keep driving, keep following whatever rules you've chosen to live by, and hope that when the tests come, and they always come eventually, you'll have the strength to maintain speed and direction. Even when everything in you screams to stop, especially then.